My mom looked me dead in the eye over lunch and said, "We've updated the will, Jacob will get everything." I stared back and said, "Then let him pay your electric bill." And I slid it across the table and left them speechless. It wasn't always like this. Or maybe it was, and I just didn't see it clearly until now. For the longest time, I thought being the responsible one meant something, that it was honorable, that it came with respect, or love, or at the very least appreciation. But apparently, in my family, it just meant I was the one they'd bleed dry while calling it love. My name's Jessica Lane. I'm 34. I grew up in a beige split-level house in a quiet Midwest suburb where the grass had to be exactly 2 inches high or the HOA would leave snide little letters in your mailbox. My parents, Thomas and Elaine, were the definition of middle-class stability. Dad was an electrical engineer for 30 years. Mom worked part-time as a school secretary. Not glamorous, but stable, predictable, safe. I have an older brother, Jacob. He's 36. From the day he was born, he had a halo. Or maybe it was just the lighting in every photo because he was always front and center. Football captain, debate club, golden boy, early admitted to a fancy private college in the Northeast. My parents paid his tuition, sent care packages every week, and flew out for his honors convocation like it was the freaking Olympics. Me, I took out loans, worked 2 jobs, and still managed to graduate with honors from a state school. My graduation celebration was breakfast at Denny's. I kid you not. My dad spent the entire meal talking about how Jacob just bought a condo in Chicago. Jacob wasn't even there. He was networking in Cabo. Looking back, I see how invisible I was. Even my big moments didn't really register. I won a statewide science fair in high school, built a working prototype of a filtration system for low-income communities. My parents didn't come. Dad had a tea time. Mom had a hair appointment. When I brought the trophy home, she looked up from her People magazine and said, "That's nice, honey. Did you remember to defrost the chicken? I wish I could say that was a fluke." It wasn't. That was the pattern. Jacob got applause. I got expectations. I learned to be quiet, helpful, and uncomplaining. I did the dishes without being asked, remembered birthdays, sent thank you cards on behalf of the family. I was the glue, and everyone likes the glue until they don't need it anymore. Eventually, I moved out, got my degree, and landed a stable job in pharmaceutical research. Not glamorous, not flashy, but I had benefits, paid vacations, and a 401k. I bought myself a tiny condo with a leaky faucet, adopted a cat named Professor Nibbles Don't Ask, and settled into a life that felt, quietly, okay. Meanwhile, Jacob job-hopped through companies with names that sounded like energy drinks, Nexafi Blascor Drift. He lived in glass apartments with exposed brick-dated women who looked like they'd been manufactured in a startup lab and always showed up to family holidays like he was too important to stay more than 18 hours. But my parents ate up every story he told like it was gospel. Jacob just landed a new position. Jacob's team is about to IPO. Jacob might buy a place in the Hamptons. Jacob was a fantasy. I was the reality. And reality meant that when my dad had a health scare 3 years ago, mild stroke, nothing fatal, but enough to rattle us, I was the one who took off work. I was the one in the hospital lobby at 3 a.m. I made the calls. I managed the insurance. I made sure Mom ate something that wasn't vending machine cheese crackers. Jacob sent a flower arrangement and called once from Boston. I remember sitting by Dad's hospital bed when he woke up late one night disoriented. "Jessica," he said. "Yeah, Dad, I'm here." "Where's Jacob?" he asked, eyes searching the room like a confused child. "He's out of town," I said gently. "For work, remember." He nodded slowly like he wasn't quite sure. "He's doing so well, isn't he?" he mumbled. "Such a good son." I swallowed the lump in my throat and helped him drink some water. I didn't say anything. What could I say? He was on medication. I told myself it didn't mean anything. After that hospital stay, things started to shift. Or maybe they had already shifted and I was just beginning to notice. Dad asked for help setting up automatic payments. "Technology confuses me," said the man who built our home stereo system from scratch in the 90s. Mom asked for help with property taxes because they were a little short. It was subtle at first. A water bill here, a car repair there, always temporary, always just this once. But just this once turned into always. I started getting calls like, "Jess, the furnace broke. Can you cover it until our check clears?" Or, "Honey, we need to update the kitchen." Just countertops. Nothing major. Before I knew it, I was paying $1,500 a month to keep their lights on their water running and their HGTV dreams alive. It wasn't just money, it was my peace, my vacations, my future. I downgraded my gym. I cut my hair at chain salons with sticky floors and chatty barbers. I packed soggy rice bowls for lunch instead of grabbing anything fresh. My savings account plateaued. I told myself I was being a good daughter, a responsible one. It was the same word they always used. "You're just so dependable, Jessica. We can always count on you. You've got such a good head on your shoulders." At some point, it stopped sounding like praise and started sounding like a leash, and the worst part, I didn't question it. I told myself this is what families do. I convinced myself I was repaying them for all those childhood years of piano lessons and Christmas gifts. I told myself love was supposed to look like sacrifice. I didn't realize I was the only one bleeding. It started with a meeting, a Zoom call that was supposed to be about family financial planning. Just the phrase made my chest tighten. Finally, I thought. After years of unspoken expectations and bank transfers made in silence, maybe we were going to have a real conversation. Maybe they'd say thank you. Maybe they'd acknowledge what I'd done. I logged in early wearing a clean blouse and a hopeful heart. Mom and Dad joined next. Jacob arrived last, perfectly lit like someone who'd rehearsed his entrance. He flashed his teeth like a political candidate and said, "Let me just share my screen." What followed was 30 minutes of spreadsheets, pie charts, and terms like liquidity cushion and growth strategy. Jacob had apparently decided he was now the family's personal wealth manager. Mom and Dad sat there nodding along like he was Moses descending with stone tablets, even though I knew they had no idea what he was saying. And through it all, not one word about me. Not one line in the pie chart labeled Jessica's contributions. Not a mention of the thousands I'd been sending every month. I watched myself shrink into a tiny box in the corner of the screen, silent and fading. At the end of it, Mom chirped, "Oh, Jess, don't forget the property tax bill is due Friday. We're counting on you. You've always been the reliable one." I smiled, muted, logged off, and sat in the dark staring at my screen. Reliable. That word again. Something broke in me that night, not like glass shattering, more like a crack in ice that spread slowly but deeply. I felt hollow, betrayed, used. I hadn't been included in the conversation about their future because I wasn't in it. I wasn't family. I was a funding source. I was a walking bank account. Still, I said nothing. I just started watching more closely. And that's when I noticed the mail in their kitchen addressed to Jacob with the words, "Mortgage statement" in bold. A financial app on Mom's phone, one I had never seen before. It lets Jacob see our accounts, she explained when I asked, just so he can keep an eye on things. Then the strangest moment of all cookies. I'd made them from scratch, the kind Dad likes, with too much cinnamon and not enough sugar. I dropped by unannounced, let myself in, and heard Jacob's voice in the back room. "Once the house is in the trust," he said. I froze, listened. "We just need to finalize the transfer." He spotted me, smiled like nothing was off, and said, "Hey sis, just helping Dad with some paperwork." I nodded, played dumb. But inside, my thoughts were a tornado. I wasn't paranoid anymore. I was being edged out, cut from the family I thought I belonged to. The final cut came 2 weeks later. I was helping Mom find a receipt when I found a folder labeled Will, Final 2023. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But if you tell me you wouldn't have opened it, you're either lying or have a halo. My hands were shaking. I opened it like it might bite me. And it did. Everything was left to Jacob. The house, the retirement funds, the cars, the jewelry, even the dog. There was a short letter inside. 1 paragraph. No mention of me. just praise for Jacob's financial acumen and their faith in his ability to carry on the family legacy. No thank you for the $40,000 I'd sent, no keepsake, no mention, no memory. I wasn't just overlooked, I was erased. I sat down on the carpet, will in hand, unable to breathe. I had traded my 20s and 30s, my savings, my self-care, my dreams for people who didn't even think I was worth a line in their final wishes. That night, I did something I had never done before. I made a spreadsheet. Every bill, every transaction, every just this once, 3 years, $40, $752.93. My stomach turned. That was a house down payment. That was my future bleeding out one quiet bank draft at a time. I closed the laptop, and I made a decision. No confrontation, no dramatic family blow-up. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't explain. I just stopped. No more payments, no more texts, no more help. I gave them 3 months. I waited, watched, prayed they'd notice. They didn't. Instead, they got louder. Jessica, the electricity bill is past due. Jessica, the property tax is due. Friday, Jessica, your dad missed his show because the cable's out. Never once. Are you okay? Do you need help? Is something wrong? I was invisible in their future, but essential in their present, and that contradiction was my breaking point. Not a scream, not a fight, just a silent surgical exit. I didn't cancel everything at once. That would have been too obvious, too loud, and I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted clarity. I wanted to know just how far this would go before anyone noticed I was gone. So instead, I went quiet. The first thing I did was log into the utility company and remove myself as an authorized payer, then the gas bill, then the HOA. I paused the automatic transfer that went toward their property taxes. With every click, I felt like I was untying a knot that had been choking me for years. No one noticed. A week passed, then 2. I half expected a phone call, some confusion, maybe even a thank you if they finally realized how much I'd been doing. But no. Instead, I got a voicemail from Mom Jess. The water bill's late again. Could you take care of it? We're swamped this week. You've always been such a help. I stared at my phone and whispered, not anymore. By the 3rd week, I had removed my name from every single payment. I even contacted their lawn care service and told them the monthly charges would no longer be covered by me. When the rep asked, would you like us to notify the client? I said no. Let them find out the way I did by being forgotten. I wasn't being petty. I wasn't trying to get revenge. I was performing a quiet financial exorcism, cleansing my life of the invisible shackles I'd let them tighten around me. It was bizarre how freeing it felt to not send money, to open my banking app and not feel dread. I'd been living like a ghost, haunting someone else's financial comfort while barely keeping my own lights on. And for what a place in a will that no longer had my name. One afternoon, I pulled up to their house, parked across the street, and just sat there, watching. I knew the electric company was due to cut the power. I'd received one last notice before my name was wiped off the account. Right on time, the utility truck rolled up. The technician got out, clipboard in hand, walked around to the side of the house, and a moment later, the porch light flickered off. The house darkened, and a strange quiet filled the block. I watched from my car as my parents stepped outside, confused, frustrated. Dad was on the phone waving his arms. Mom looked at her phone, probably wondering why I hadn't swooped in yet. I took a sip of my iced coffee. No guilt, just stillness. I knew how this would go. The texts would escalate. The calls would turn panicked. But they wouldn't be about me. They'd be about bills, about discomfort, about how I'd let them down when the truth was I'd finally stopped letting them drain me dry. The next morning, I woke up to 19 missed calls. One from Jacob, too. Curious, I answered his on the 4th ring. Jess? His voice was tight. Mom and Dad say the power's out. What happened? I was quiet for a beat. They didn't pay the bill. Well, yeah, but they thought you... He trailed off. Thought I would what I asked. Keep paying, even after they cut me out of the will. Silence. Just breathing on the other end. I didn't know he finally said. About the will? About how much you've been paying? I didn't reply. They told me you were just helping out here and there. I didn't realize it was... Jess, they said you were sending $300 a month. On average, I said. Sometimes more. Jesus, there it was. The sound of realization, of guilt, of reality slapping someone in the face. I thought I was managing the estate, he muttered. I didn't know you were funding it. You are managing it, I said. I've stepped aside. It's all yours now. That conversation ended without a resolution, but I didn't need one. I had already made mine. I spent the rest of that week doing something I hadn't done in years, budgeting for myself. I looked at travel blogs, researched flights, and calculated what I could afford with all the money I wasn't sending to other people. The total stunned me. In just 3 months, I'd saved more than I had in the past 2 years. I booked a round-trip flight to Thailand that night. Window seat, mid-range hotel, guided food tour. I even ordered myself one of those ridiculous tourist shirts ahead of time. My parents wrote me out of their will, and all I got was this t-shirt and emotional trauma. I laughed when it arrived. For the first time in years, the sound didn't feel strained. And just like that, I started living again, not as a backup plan for someone else's bad decisions, but as the main character in my own life. They didn't notice right away. Not really. The texts kept coming like nothing had changed. Jess, can you handle the HOA dues this month, sweetie? We need to get the plumber in again. Same issue as before. Can you call and pay? Don't forget cable's due Friday. Your dad's already grumbling about missing his shows. It was astonishing. The complete lack of awareness. No pause, no curiosity about why the payments had stopped. Just demand after demand like I was a vending machine for adult responsibilities. Insert guilt press, pay bill, receive a quiet life. Then Mom called me for dinner. We want to talk, she said. Just us. Please come. I should have known. But part of me still clung to this flickering hope that maybe they finally understood. Maybe they'd explain the will. Maybe they'd see me. I put on a decent sweater and brought over a bottle of wine I'd been saving. That's the kind of daughter I was. Even now, walking into a conversation that would probably gut me again, I brought a gift. Dinner was... normal. Jacob wasn't there for once. It was just the 3 of us. We had roast chicken, talked about Mom's roses, the neighbor's barking dog, and the ridiculous cost of organic eggs. I waited, then over dishes it dropped. Mom dried her hands and said casually, "Oh, Jessica, by the way, the property tax came $200. We'll need that by Friday. No, please, no, can you manage it? Just the expectation." I stared at her, then back down at the plate I was drying. "I can't," I said simply. Mom paused. "What do you mean, you can't? I can't pay it this time." Her eyes narrowed slightly, like she was reading fine print in a contract she didn't like. "But it's the property tax, honey. If we don't pay, we get penalties." I shrugged, folding the dish towel neatly. "I'm sure Jacob can help. He's good with finances, remember?" Mom blinked like I'd just spoken a foreign language. "Jacob? But he's got his own life. He's busy. He has... expenses." I laughed. I actually laughed. "And I don't." She frowned. "It's different with you. You're always so... practical." There it was again. Practical. Responsible. Dependable. The words they used to rationalize draining me dry while praising Jacob for doing the bare minimum. "I don't think it is different," I said. "I think you just expect me to be uncomfortable so you don't have to be." Silence. Mom crossed her arms. "Well, I didn't realize you were keeping score." I placed the plate down gently. "I'm not. But maybe I should have started." That's when I saw it, that flicker of indignation on her face, the shift from confusion to offense. In that moment, I knew they didn't think they'd done anything wrong. They genuinely believed this was how it was supposed to be. I pay. They benefit, Jacob inherits. The circle of dysfunction complete. I picked up my bag. I should go. "But the taxes," Mom began. "Not my problem," I said, and walked out the door. And that was just the beginning. A week later came the lunch invitation. "We need to talk," she said again. This time I didn't dress up. I showed up in jeans and a hoodie, no makeup, no expectations. They were already at the table when I arrived. Mom, Dad, and Jacob, of course. I sat down slowly. We chatted about weather, about my cat, about Jacob's latest venture, whatever that meant. I waited. I watched them. It felt rehearsed, like they'd practiced this scene without me. Then Mom cleared her throat. "Jessica," she said sweetly, "we noticed you've been struggling to keep up with the bills lately." "Struggling? I'm not struggling," I replied, voice even. "I'm just reprioritizing." Dad chimed in. "If something's wrong, you should have told us. We're family." I had to choke down a bitter laugh. Then came Jacob's part. "I've been looking over Mom and Dad's financial situation," he said, folding his hands like a smug TED Talk speaker. "I'm concerned about their long-term planning. That's why I've been stepping in to help manage things." "Manage things," I echoed. "Yeah," he said. "The estate, the investments, not day-to-day stuff, obviously. That's more you've been handling that. More my job." Then Mom dropped it. "We've updated our will. Jacob will handle everything. He's just more suited for that kind of responsibility. You understand." That was it. No apology, no conversation. Just Jacob will get everything, and oh, could I still handle the electric bill? I looked around the table. 3 people who had sat on my shoulders for years, who had smiled while I silently poured myself into their comfort, who thought they could strip me from the family tree and still expect me to water it. I pushed back my chair, stood slowly. I think I've lost my appetite. Mom blinked. "But you haven't touched your food." "I'm not hungry anymore," I said. "Not for food, not for this." Dad started to speak something about the cable bill. I turned. "Ask Jacob. He's better suited for that kind of responsibility." I left them there blinking, forks in midair, not understanding what just happened, and I didn't care, because for the first time in years, I did. I didn't yell. I didn't text long, angry paragraphs. I didn't send a formal letter itemizing every dollar they owed me. I went home, sat down at my laptop, and did what I do best: handle the details. I canceled every automatic payment, every linked account, every financial cord that tethered me to them. The water bill gone, electric deleted, HOA dues notified, lawn care canceled, trash service cut. I even logged into the app I used to auto-send them monthly grocery help and remove their address entirely. It felt surgical, like I was removing a tumor I had willingly nurtured because I thought it was love. With every "Are you sure you want to cancel this?" prompt, I clicked yes without hesitation. I was sure. More sure than I had ever been of anything in my adult life. And with every confirmation email, I felt lighter, like I'd been dragging an invisible chain and was now finally free. Then I blocked their numbers. Not forever, just for a week, like a detox, a financial and emotional cleanse. At first, the silence was strange. I'd been conditioned to anticipate their needs to flinch every time a bill was due. So for the first few days, my body tensed each time my phone buzzed, only to realize it was a friend or a package notification. No guilt, no demands, just space. It was like stepping outside after years in a room with recycled air. The breeze hit my face and whispered, "This is what freedom smells like." When I unblocked their numbers 7 days later, it was like opening a floodgate. Missed calls, voicemails, texts. "Mom, Jessica, have you forgotten the HOA again? The water bill is late. Please take care of it. We miss you. Please respond. Dad." This is unacceptable. You need to step up. What kind of daughter lets her parents live like this? I should have known we couldn't count on you long term. It was like they had all collectively forgotten the lunch, forgotten what they said, forgotten the will. Or worse, they hadn't forgotten at all. They just didn't care. Then came the one message I didn't expect. The electricity's out, no question, no humility, just panic. "Did you forget to pay? Your dad missed the game, Jessica?" I stared at my phone. Then slowly I typed back, "No." I remembered everything you said. I hit send and put the phone face down. That night I slept like a baby. Not a colicky baby, a warm, safe, snoring like a drum baby. I woke up rested in a way I hadn't been in years. The next day I drove past their house out of pure curiosity. I had a coffee in hand and parked across the street like I was just another neighbor. The utility truck was already there. The man in uniform walked around to the side of the house. A few minutes later, the porch lights blinked off. The driveway lamp went dark. One by one, the house's power flickered out like stars in a cloudy sky. I watched as Dad stormed out, phone to his ear. I could practically hear the voicemail he was leaving. "You've crossed the line." Jessica Mom appeared next, hair in rollers, wrapped in a sweater, staring into her now powerless kingdom. And me, I sipped my coffee. I felt nothing. No guilt, no urge to jump out and fix things, no ache to soothe. Just a deep, cooling peace, like the emotional fever had finally broken. They had planned a future I wasn't part of. They had excluded me from their will, their legacy, their conversations, yet still expected me to be their savior. I used to wonder if I was the bad guy for finally saying no. But watching them scramble, watching them experience for the first time what life looked like without me, I realized something profound. I was never the bad guy. I was the bridge they burned while still expecting to cross it. The power stayed out for 3 days. 3 full days of calls, texts, and voicemails I didn't answer. Dad threatened to report me to the police for elder neglect. Mom rotated between guilt-tripping and emotional bribery. "We'll have to sell Grandma's pearls," she wrote. "We're desperate, Jess." Jacob tried logic. Just this once he said in an email, "Help out now and we'll talk about things after." But there would be no after. Because after 3 days of darkness, Jacob finally paid the bill. 3 days. That's how long it took for the golden child, the financial savant, the one who inherited everything, to lift a single damn finger. The irony was so thick, it practically needed to be sliced with a steak knife. After the lights came back on, things went quiet. Too quiet. Then the letter arrived, a handwritten one from my mother. She hadn't written anything by hand since my 4th grade field trip permission slip. She'd complained then about her wrist cramping from all that scribbling, so I knew this letter was serious. It wasn't an apology. Not really. It was more of a meandering attempt to justify what they'd done. She said they always saw me as the strong one, that they didn't tell me about the will because we didn't think you'd care about material things. She wrote, and I quote, "You're always so emotionally mature. We thought you'd understand. Understand being erased. Understand paying for a life I wouldn't be part of." Then the kicker, the final paragraph. "We always counted on you because you were the only one we could trust. Jacob looks great on paper, but you were our rock. Their rock. Funny. They used me like a foundation, then built the house without me. It was the first time I realized being the strong one doesn't mean you owe anyone your strength. Especially not people who only show up when it's convenient to them. Especially not people who see your love as something to budget for, not something to return. I haven't written back. I don't know if I will. I'm still in therapy. My therapist raised an eyebrow at the letter but said it was a start. I think it's more of an ending, honestly. I'm focusing on myself now. I bought new bed sheets, the kind with a high thread count that makes you feel like royalty. I go to a real salon again. I even bought an espresso machine because I deserve to wake up to something that wasn't just survival. And yes, I booked the trip. Thailand, beach bungalows, mango smoothies, fresh air that doesn't smell like generational disappointment. I'll be boarding that plane in 2 weeks. And when I do, I'll be wearing a t-shirt that says, "My parents wrote me out of their will and all I got was this t-shirt, emotional trauma and a vacation in Thailand." And you know what? I'll wear it with pride, because I earned it. Every word of it. Have you ever been the responsible one in your family until you realized you were just the one they could use? Drop your story in the comments. I promise you're not alone. And if this hit home, go ahead and subscribe and remind yourself you don't owe anyone your peace.